affective strategies, techniques that focus on attitudes, motivation, and values. There are two sides to this strategy, actually any strategy. One is that the teacher uses it to get the learner more in tune with their feelings. However, when we talk about strategy-based instruction, what we really mean is that we teach the learner how to use the strategy. We're not really talking about the teacher using it. We're talking about the learner learning how to use it. For example, an affective strategy that we can teach learners is that of closing their eyes, deep breathing, and calming their mind before taking a test. If the teacher just has the learners do this without explaining why, then the teacher is using this affective strategy, but is not really teaching this strategy. On the other hand, if the instructor brings in an article about test-related stress and/or solicits ideas from the learners of ways of alleviating that stress, and then presents the deep breathing as one possibility, then the instructor is teaching the students about the strategy and how to use the strategy, bringing it to a conscious level. Assessment versus feedback. Assessment is amassing and evaluating evidence of learning used to measure academic achievement. Feedback is information given to a person as formal or informal performance evaluation. It's important to recognize that feedback is a type of assessment. Assessment sounds so formal and feedback so informal, but in reality both can be formal or informal. Both can be done by teachers or students or by individuals themselves. Assessment is the large term that houses lots of types of assessments, such as quizzes, written comments on a paper, encouragement or advice from classmates, and portfolios. One kind of feedback happens when an ESL student is at McDonald's and the cashier doesn't understand their English. Frequently, that type of real-life feedback can be more powerful and more fruitful for language learning than the teacher giving technical explanation of what pronunciation point needs more work. Cognitive strategies versus metacognitive strategies. Cognitive strategies are ways of organizing cognitive resources, such as attention and long-term memory, to help reach a learning goal. Metacognitive strategies are techniques that make explicit various learning and thinking processes occurring in a student's brain. Cognitive and metacognitive strategies overlap, and in everyday practical manners, the truth is the difference is not important. However, let's try to look at the difference. Bringing in an article about the need to focus and be attentive in order for learning to happen, letting students discuss it and come up with strategies for focusing on their homework, regardless of distractions, is an example of a cognitive strategy. Now, if you ask them to mark down on a piece of paper over the weekend each time they were distracted and refocused, then you're teaching a metacognitive strategy, because now they're monitoring their use of the cognitive strategy. Metacognitive strategies try to bring to the conscious level of awareness for everyone what good learners do subconsciously, automatically. Research makes clear that we can teach poor and average students how to be good students using metacognitive strategies. Learning strategies. Learning strategies are the approach used by a learner for achieving learning objectives. A learning strategy can be almost anything that a student uses to help them learn. After an instructor has taught a particular metacognitive strategy, then some students will adopt it as one of their personal learning strategies. Peer assessment is having people of the same age or ability level, it doesn't have to always be the same age, but same age or ability level, evaluating each other's work. Often, learners are not too excited by peer assessment. It's difficult for them, and they believe the teacher would catch every mistake. In fact, once the teacher marks mistakes on the paper, the learner can trust that those are issues. However, when a peer marks errors on their essay, they need to carefully evaluate whether the peer is correct about what is an error, and they need to check again to see if there are other mistakes that the peer missed. This kind of effort is exactly what the instructor wants, but most students don't understand the learning value of it. I would have students assess a classmate's paper before going back for a final revision of their own, because it's always easier to find mistakes in someone else's writing. Once they find a mistake, it remains in their consciousness as they read their own paper. Thus, the peer assessment makes it more likely they will find their own mistakes. So for me, peer assessment was not about them finding mistakes in other people's writing. It was about making it easier for them to find their own mistakes. There are tools and techniques that can be used for effective peer assessment. Portfolio is a collection of evidence available for evaluation. There are multiple reasons for portfolios. For example, the online MA-TESOL program requires that you keep an electronic portfolio, which is examined at the end before you're allowed to take the comprehensive exam. The benefit to you, the learner, is that you can clearly see that there was an organized plan with specific goals and objectives regarding what you should learn in order to qualify as a master of teaching English as a second or other language. By the way, take the mastering of TESOL seriously. Don't think of it as just another degree to get. Be determined to master it. Your final portfolio will have evidence that you did actually meet each and every learning objective outlined in the master plan for the program. I've also used portfolios simply so that learners don't forget over the course of the semester how much they've learned and how they've improved. When they see that they went from typing a 3-sentence paragraph in the beginning to a 2-page essay by the end, they have visual proof of their growth. There are lots of other methods of using portfolios which you'll learn as you go through the program. Prior knowledge is the mental preparation that learners bring to the learning task based upon previous experience and learning. Why is this important in ESL? Well, brain research clearly indicates that students will learn faster, remember more, and for a longer time when new information can be presented by making a mental bridge to learners' prior knowledge. Therefore, activating a learner's prior knowledge about a class subject can help them feel validated as individuals as well as promote learning. Proficiency test is a test that is independent of any specific curriculum that is used to assess a second language learner's language skills for purposes of assigning a relative level. A proficiency test is not equal to a standardized test. However, the TOEFL is an example of a standardized proficiency test. But many schools create their own proficiency test. So that would be an example of something that's not standardized. Sometimes proficiency tests are also called assessment tests or placement tests. The goal of a proficiency test is to find out what level the student should be placed in or assigned to. On the other hand, achievement tests check to see if the learner has acquired the specific standards for that lesson or course. Again, achievement tests may be standardized or created by individual instructors. Rubric is a set of pre-established criteria according to which student work is graded. There are lots of styles of rubrics. My personal favorite is a checklist of what should be included along with its point value. For each item not there, the corresponding point or points is subtracted. So it's kind of a yes-no type. The goal of any rubric is to make it as clear as possible exactly how a student can get an A on an assignment. Rubrics attempt to eliminate bias and make the grading process as objective as possible, which results in more consistent grading throughout the class. Scaffolding is temporary help given by a teacher until the student can perform a task independently. And I'm not talking physical help. I'm talking help via worksheets and different information that's given. Early in the year, teachers do a lot of scaffolding by breaking the lesson down into small, manageable sections. As the learners progress, the instructor does not have to provide the same detailed information for skills and materials already learned, but new information continues to need scaffolding. Self-assessment is simply evaluating one's own performance. This is an easy term to understand, but self-assessment is a skill/strategy that needs to be taught for several reasons. The most obvious reason is that when the learner leaves the classroom and gets a job, They need to be able to find their own language mistakes and correct them. Also, being able to effectively and honestly evaluate your own work is considered the highest level of understanding in Bloom's taxonomy. It demonstrates true fluency and proficiency. It's considered one of the higher order thinking skills, which the acronym is HOTS. One more reason for self-assessment or self-reflection is that younger learners today are always moving forward, problem solving and doing, but not really thinking about how they accomplished what they did. Self-reflection is not a skill that comes easy to digital natives. Social strategies are learning how to relate with other people. How is social strategy different from cooperative learning? Cooperative learning is one tool a teacher can use to promote social strategies. The teacher should help the students learn how to appropriately interact with each other and what the benefits are. This is a strategy that instructors often use, but seldom teach. For example, a social strategy is giving a compliment. The teacher could have the learners discuss how they feel when they get a compliment, can help them memorize typical compliment patterns in English, and can help them understand how giving someone else a compliment can, A, make themselves feel better, so they're more interested in learning, and or B, help them make a friend whom they can ask for explanations of assignments or other classwork. The number one job skill employers are looking for, by the way, is being able to work with others. When instructors actually teach these social skills as opposed to just using them, the learner is better prepared for the future. Another question, though, is how are social strategies different from affective strategies? They're similar, and sometimes are referred to as socio-affective strategies. The difference is that affective strategies are concerned with the individual's thoughts and feelings, whereas social strategies are about relationships and learning how to get along with people. Okay, so of course, as we're able to get along with people better, most people feel better, so they are interrelated. Strategy-based instruction is teaching the learner how to use cognitive, affective, social, or metacognitive strategies to improve their learning. The important aspect here is teaching the learner how to use the strategy, as opposed to the teacher using the strategy in class without explicit explanation of what it is, how to use it, and when to use it. See each strategy separately for explanation of what particular strategy means.